Well, the first thing I want to do is just say thank you to everybody who's out here already, and I know people are still coming, but we're going to get started. There's great cause for great concern, and there's great cause for great joy. And as much as we need to focus on the joy, we need to focus on the concern. And as much as we need to focus on the concern, we need to focus on the joy. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and then I'm going to speak, and then we're going to have Gwendolyn speak. And I think it's just so important to recognize. And I think, Luke, I'm probably going to ask you to speak too, if that's okay. And we're going to we're just going to recognize the importance of being here and understanding the changes that are happening and what we can do, what we need to do, what we have to do in order to make this a different place. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Pedro Irigaray, who is a long-time criminal defense and civil rights attorney who has dedicated hours upon hours upon hours upon hours over a span of 2 decades that I know of, probably longer, of representing pro bono people in the transgender community who have needed his help. And he's been an amazing help to me in some of the pursuits that I'm working on, and he's been an amazing help to people dating all the way back to Janelle Gardner. And if you don't know who she is, I'll tell you about that later. Pedro Irigaray.
Good afternoon. It's great to see you all here. I began my efforts with the LGBT community when I was in law school. That was back in 1970 to 73. In those days, the University of Kansas was not allowing gay students to use the facilities. And with a number of individuals, we won that battle. You know, I'm a heterosexual male, and what we're doing here is not a gay issue, it's not a transgender issue, it's a human rights issue where all of us need to be involved. I am appalled by the backward steps that the current administration is taking. The attack on civil liberties, the attack on decency that Mr. Trump and his cabinet, and now recently with his communications director, the level of vulgarity that we're seeing in our nation causes alarm. I wish that was a police car going out to arrest those fools. The excuse given by Donald Trump to deny transgender men and women honorably serving in the United States military is the financial cost of medication. Well, I suggest that if we're going to be worried about the financial cost of medication, the first thing we ought to do is to cut off the Viagra for Trump's generals.
Thank you.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous what is going on in our nation's capital. And we need to hold our local politicians accountable. Whether they're representatives, whether it's our senators, we need to hold them accountable. And we need a grassroots movement to turn this nightmare around. Because if we don't, it's not going to get done. We have an election coming up in the city of Topeka this coming Tuesday. We have elections in 2018 for the House of Representatives. Here at the epicenter of hate, not better demonstrated by those bigoted, mean-spirited people across the street from us, we right here at the epicenter of hate need to send a signal that love does overcome hate, that intelligence does overcome stupidity, and that knowledge will always triumph over ignorance. I am honored to have been involved in representing transgender human beings for many, many years. Unfortunately, our society has not yet caught up with the danger that these individuals face each and every day. They are physically assaulted, brutalized emotionally, murdered about 2 a month, not treated equally in employment issues, disregarded by many churches acting in the name of Jesus, and generally marginalized for no other reason than they are a bit different from what they believe is to be appropriate. Their ignorance is disturbing, for in that beautiful bell curve of humanity, none are less equal, none are less deserving of dignity, none should suffer the consequences that we see on a daily basis occurring to our transgender community. All we have to do is listen to the stories. Stephanie mentioned Gardner. Dr. Gardner was a physician in Kansas who married a lady transgender. Now, I guarantee you Dr. Gardner understood the physiology involved. And he loved his wife, adored her. A wonderful lady, herself an educator. Dr. Gardner died, and Dr. Gardner's son filed a claim in Leavenworth County alleging that because his father's wife was born with a penis, that they should never have been allowed to marry in Kansas. The district court agreed and basically threw Mrs. Gardner out of the home, denying her every benefit of marriage. The case was appealed to the Court of Appeals, and my friend Bob Gernon wrote one of the most brilliant legal opinions, citing the scientific research, making it clear that Mrs. Gardner was indeed a woman, that to deny it was to deny knowledge, to deny science, to deny education. But notwithstanding that amazing opinion that he wrote, months later, the Kansas Supreme Court, in what has to be one of the most regressive stains in our judicial history, reversed the Court of Appeals and agreed to the notion that a man and a woman were defined as it would have been in 1861. In essence, setting aside all marital interest that Mrs. Gardner had by marriage. Think about that. Our Supreme Court did that. Well, much like throwing a pebble in a pond and seeing the ripples expand, one of those ripples has now snagged our dear friend Stephanie. I represent Stephanie against the bigoted administration of Sam Brownback, who's now going to represent our nation in protecting religious rights. I suggest he's going to enhance religious wrongs, for bigotry can never be a religious value. Quite the contrary. If there is such a thing as sin, bigotry has got to be close to the top. Brownback's administration, through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Vital Statistics, denied Stephanie the right to change her birth certificate to a female. Now, they can give no legitimate reason for that level of bigotry, that level of brutality, that level of denial of the truth. They waved at me the Gardner decision and denied in the district court. The judge denied Stephanie's claim that her birth certificate be changed. But you know what? I'm no quitter. And we're taking this case back to the Supreme Court. Because it's time that the Supreme Court address the erroneous decision they made in Gardner. It's time that the Supreme Court caught up with the times. It's time that the Supreme Court became in tune with the science, which we know today about transgender people and the beautiful curve in humanity in which Stephanie and every other human being, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of whether or not they are transgender, belong as our brothers or sisters or mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors, teachers, and perhaps one of these days, governor of the state of Kansas. So thank you for being here. Remember, if you don't oppose bigotry, you endorse it with your silence. Stand up every day for equality. Don't be frightened, particularly in today's world. Matters not how ugly the opposition is, we can overcome it with the truth, with our courage, with our love and our compassion. We need you. We need you together to do what is right, not only for Topeka, the state of Kansas, but our nation. I'm appalled about the thousands of people dying in Somalia right now due to cholera. Our president has not said one word about it. The disastrous situation going on in Venezuela, what was recently going on in Poland, with the power in Poland trying to take over the judiciary and make it a political branch. And our president was in Poland endorsing the president. We need your help, folks. We need your help. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'm not a religious man, so that I don't end these speeches with God bless you. I end these speeches with, may you help each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro, for sharing some words and for sharing your life and making that part of your life, helping us to be able to find equality for people who are transgender and gender nonconforming. Our next speaker I'm going to introduce is Mr. Luke Ben-Simone, and Luke is the chapter chair of Equality Kansas in the Topeka chapter. He is a founding member of the Kansas Statewide Transgender Education Project. He is on the board of directors, has been since that time with KSTEP. And he also just recently established the first ever chapter in Kansas of Black Trans Men Incorporated. And yesterday he won the KSTEP Pioneer Award as a pioneer in transgender education and activism. Mr. Luke Ben-Simone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me? The ladies in the back that said they couldn't hear, can you hear me? All right. So, I'm not going to be up here long, but I will say this. My ancestors during the Civil Rights Movement gave their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears for African Americans to have rights in this country. There's one. The second thing I want to say is there are many people in this world of the trans experience that pay taxes, they have mortgages, they have families, and they have the right to serve this country in whatever way they choose, be it the Army, be it the Navy, or the Marines. So, I don't know a lot about military life because I'm physically challenged, so that actually automatically rules me out. But I will say this, as I said before, they have a right to serve this country in any way they choose. My grandma taught me if you cannot say anything nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. So, I'm not going to say anything bad about Mr. Trump or Mr. President, however they address him. But he's wrong about this. I have met some individuals in the last, I want to say, month that are of the trans experience that have served this country. And they are some amazing individuals. And they deserve the right to have that acknowledgement that they served this country. Regardless of anything else. They are human first. So, with that, write some letters, make some noise, sign some things, but let them know that we love them and we care about them and we're on their side. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. So I'm going to say a few words and I'm going to turn it over to our keynote speaker. For those who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Mott. I'm the founder, director of the Kansas Statewide Transgender Education Project, and I'm also a therapist at Vallejo Behavioral Health Care. When I first came to Topeka, I lived on the men's side of the Topeka Rescue Mission, and that was in 2005. And I had dropped out of college in 1980, and I had never been able to stay sober more than a day or two in my life. And I was struggling just to live, just to exist in a world that was telling me constantly that I didn't have a right to be here. And eventually I met some people who told me that was just total, complete bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah. I have every right to be here. I have a right to be who I am. I don't have to pretend to be somebody who I'm not in order to navigate this world. And I certainly shouldn't have to pretend to be somebody that I'm not in order to join the United States military. Donald Trump is wrong. Donald Trump is wrong for America. Donald Trump is wrong for humanity. Donald Trump is wrong for transgender people and lesbian, gay, bi, anybody who's transgender, gender nonconforming is suffering today because of Donald Trump. And those facts are real. And if we begin to think that this is going to be the end of his attacks on people who are transgender and gender nonconforming, we are being very naive, because this is just the beginning of what he's going to do. Now we have to stand up. Now we have to make a difference. Good news. There's already been a bill introduced into the United States Congress to block his move to stop transgender people from serving in the military. We need to make sure we're calling our senators and calling our representatives and letting them know how we feel about this. And if you want to know more about that, then get with me or get with one of our speakers after the presentation, and we'll tell you that. But we have power here. We have power to make a difference in how this thing plays out. And if we don't use this power here now, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. I am not a military person, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time here. I considered joining the military. because I thought it would make a man out of me. And of course it wouldn't have ever made a man out of me because I've never been a man, and I'll never be a man, and I have always been a woman, and I always will be a woman, and thank God I get to be that person today. One of the ways that we recognize patriotism and honor and Americanism in our country is those who serve in the United States military. And that recognition is well earned and well respected. And for Donald Trump to make a decision to deny transgender people to be able to fully participate as members of the United States military is one of the worst, one of the most destructive, discriminatory things that could possibly happen. Know this: when people do things like that, transgender children die. And if we don't recognize that for what it is, because the hopes they have for a future are bashed into the ground, we have to recognize what happens when things like this happen. And we have to stand up together. We have to stand up and be louder than we can ever be. And we can do that thing, and I'm so excited to be a part of that. And definitely, if you're not already part of it, you want to know how, come and see me or one of the other speakers. But I am not the center of attention today. And I'm going to introduce to you someone who is just absolutely amazing. And her name is Gwendolyn Lesch. And she is a disabled American veteran from the United States Air Force. And it gives me great pleasure to hand over the microphone to Gwendolyn.